Depression is a condition defined as a common and serious medical illness. It negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. In a state of depression, one is low in spirit, have gloomy feelings, feels dejected, worthless, or even guilty. Depression is not only a negative view of life, but rather something that affects one's physical being as well. It makes us sluggish, lack mental alertness, have negative assessments of friends, of family, and even oneself. Depression takes control of our whole being, both physically and mentally.
Godly people also suffers depression. Some notable people, like preacher Charles Spurgeon, Pastor John Henry Jott, reformists Martin Luther and John Knox, and foreign missionary Iron Judson, are but a few. Even popular Bible figures like Moses, King David, prophets Jeremiah and Elijah were not spared from depression's attacks. All of them broke down from intense pressure, calling out to God in despair, some of them even asking the Lord to end their sufferings. What was ironic about their situation was that they just came from a triumphant experience. Yet, when the situation turned against them, they fall into depression and began asking God why. While it is not wrong, but asking God why is like questioning God's wisdom. Remember, God is not obligated to answer our questions and remain silent if He chose to. But He always reminds us to trust Him because He is always in control. Let us take a look at the life of Job. In God's sight, he is a just man. He is faithful and obedient to his words. Job gives God such honor that the Lord blessed him in all of his possessions, his family, and the respect of his community, its elders and officials. Truly, Job was such an honored man. However, Job's faith in God was put to test when his fate suddenly changed. All of his children died altogether when the house where they were celebrating collapsed on them. While in grief, he received news that his slaves were killed and all of his livestock were taken away. All these events happened in a day. As if it was not enough, Job's body was later ravaged by a dreadful disease. Finally, Job's wife, who could no longer bear her husband's situation, abandoned him while urging her husband to curse God and die. In despair, Job left his home. He lived in the dump outside the city walls. Alone and in agony, Job still feels the pain from the humiliation and scorn he suffered at the hands of the very people who used to honor and respect him. Some he may have helped in their need. Job was despised by everybody. Young men spit and made fun of him. He simply lost everything he used to enjoy. But what pains Job the most? He knew nothing of any wrongdoing he may have done to suffer God's wrath. So Job called out to God and asked what he had done to deserve such punishment. Yet God remained silent. Confused, Job had to endure the physical pain, as well as the emotional and spiritual side of it, alone, or as what he had thought. What could be more depressing? If you are in Job's shoes, a just man who is faithful to God and obedient to his words, yet he was left with a broken body and a broken spirit, with no family to turn for comfort, nor friends to seek encouragement. In this situation, it is easy for Job to curse God as what his wife wanted him to do. Many people who are suffering depression thinks death as an instant relief from the burdens of life. They thought it is a dreamless sleep or a state of non-existence. Little do they know that death will bring us immediately in front of God and give account of what we did while living. As what the book of Hebrews 9:27 said, "It is appointed unto man to once die, after that, the judgment." What is depression? That many people who suffers from it, godly people alike, do not want to exist in its midst. Depression is a condition defined as a common but serious medical illness. It negatively affects how one feels, the way one thinks, and how one acts. In a state of depression, one is low in spirit, have gloomy feelings and dejected, also feels worthless and even guilty. Depression isn't only a negative view of life, but rather something that affects one's physical being as well. It makes us sluggish, lack mental alertness, have negative assessments of friends, and even oneself. Truth is, depression takes control of our whole being, physically and mentally. Job came to the point that he thinks he no longer have purpose in his life. Everything that brought meaning to him are all gone. Much like all people who suffers depression, they are withdrawn to life, demonize their situation, kept silent, and prefer not to talk about it. They pretend not to exist while in its midst. However, in spite of all this adversity, Job persevered and came out victorious. Depression is a cruel mental illness. Yet Job was able to hurdle this severe test. How did he do it? One may wonder. How did Job deal with his depression? It is important to note that Job's response to his situation is not unusual. Although confused, in agony and despair, he never lost grip on his faith to God. As clearly shown in Job 23:10, Job said, "But he knows the way that I take, and when he has tested me, I will come out as gold." Armed with his faith, Job faced his depression squarely. He recognized its impact in his life. He knows that man will face this mental illness sooner or later. God created human beings not to sustain holy highs throughout their entire lives. God, in his infinite wisdom, allows dark moments so that man will learn to face the realities of life and appreciate the moments of glory and light that comes before and after encountering depression. Job never knew that his situation of having to suffer severe depression was born out of God's challenge to Satan, for he speaks highly of Job. The Lord knows that his servant Job will not fail him, but instead will put Satan's taunts to shame. And the Lord was right about Job. Despite his pitiful situation, where his faith was tested to the fullest, still, he said in Job 13:15, "Although he slay me, I will still trust him." Job had the choice to face his depression in a negative way and fall deeply into self-pity, hopelessness, fear, and self-destruction, or face his situation the way God wants to, bravely, honestly, and confident to the Lord's promises. Job chose the Lord's guidance and was greatly rewarded for his faithfulness. For the person who is struggling and agonizes, do not be surprised if you find yourself confused, doubting, afflicted, and all but crushed. Look up to your Creator in prayer. You may not understand the Lord's plans while you are in a dark moment of your life. It does not mean you have lost favor in the sight of God. Trust in His promises. This is what faith is all about. As what God promised in Jeremiah 29:11.
For I know my plans for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future.
God never erred in His decisions. His plans are always for the good of mankind. All God needs is for us to trust that He will deliver in all of His promises, that He is in control of everything, and will never leave us nor forsake us.